Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, September 12th. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in again this week. Now, the focus of this week's update is on the topic of which retirement system do you belong to? We frequently get questions from members who are a little bit confused as to which retirement system that they're a member of. This is particularly true for teachers who worked for a city or town and now are members of the state teachers retirement system, the MTRS, which is not part of the local community in which you worked. So it adds a little bit of confusion to the whole situation. Things get even more confusing when we throw health insurance and dental insurance and life insurance into the mix. And we're going to cover those issues next Friday in next week's update. But before I get into the details of any of this, let me first just offer a very quick reminder that today, Friday, is our annual meeting. It takes place in Westport at Whites of Westport at 11 a.m. It's open to all Mass Retirees members. You're welcome to bring a guest. So if you're in and around the South Coast or you don't mind taking a bit of a ride today, it's a beautiful day here in Massachusetts. Come on by, say hello. We're hoping for a great crowd. It's been a good year for all of our members, particularly with the passage of the Social Security Fairness Act earlier this year. So it's a little bit of a celebration. State Senator Mike Rodrigues, who is the Senate Chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, represents Westport and the surrounding area. Chairman Rodrigues is going to be our guest speaker, so it's going to be a great day. Come on by and say hello. So in terms of which retirement system you may belong to, again, it's complicated. So if you're a little bit confused, don't feel bad. You're not alone. We frequently get asked this question. So let me try to break it down for you. There are 104 different separate public retirement systems here in Massachusetts. Most of these systems were established 100 or so years ago. The majority of them actually predate the creation of Social Security in 1935. The City of Boston and the Boston Teachers have one of the oldest, if not the oldest, public retirement system in the whole country. I believe actually dates back to the 1880s. So the decisions around how these systems operate, which communities have their own system versus belonging to a county or regional system, those decisions were made generations ago, and in some cases, again, more than 100 years ago, well before any of us were here. And certainly in the 31 years that I have been working for you at Mass Retirees, there have been no new public retirement systems created. I believe one system consolidated with Worcester County, one of the smaller towns in the county. The name is escaping me right now, so I don't want to guess and confuse anyone. But other than that, there really hasn't been any changes to the composition or structure of our public retirement systems. So the decision of which system you belong to is not up to you as a retiree or as an active public employee. It comes down to where you happen to have worked and retired from. So where you live, the community that your home is in has absolutely nothing to do with which retirement system you belong to or where your benefits come from. Again, it has strictly to do with where you are retired from. So let's start with the two largest systems and the simplest to explain. So starting with the state retirement system. The state retirement system comprises of all state employees and state retirees. So if you worked for the state government or the Commonwealth, if you were a highway department employee, Mass Turnpike, the county sheriffs, Department of Corrections, state police, any of the state agencies, state legislator, governor, state house staff member, you are a member of the state retirement system. The state retirement system is governed by a 5-member retirement board, and the benefit structures and the funding from the employer side of things comes from the state government as part of the state budget. The COLA benefits that state retirees receive are governed and structured by the legislature and the governor. The 5-member state retirement board on which our association president, Frank Valeri, is an elected member. He's one of 2 elected members of the state retirement board. The state retirement board has no formal role in the COLA. The approval of the annual COLA is part of the state budget, and the COLA base, which is right now set at $13,000, is set by state law by the legislature with the approval of the governor. Again, the retirement board has no formal role in that. They certainly advocate for benefits, but it's not up to them to decide one way or the other what those benefits are or if they're approved on an annual basis. So now let's talk about teachers. And this is where things get a little bit complicated because for the most part, nearly all public school teachers here in Massachusetts are members of the state teachers retirement system, the Mass Teachers Retirement System, what we refer to as the MTRS, which is run by and funded by the state government. And again, this is not anything new. This dates back well over 100 years ago, these decisions were made. But where it gets complicated is that if you are a Boston teacher, whether you're an active teacher or a retired Boston teacher, you are a member of the City of Boston retirement system. Your benefits are paid for by the state government, but you are a member of the City of Boston retirement system. And the Boston retirement system, along with the city council and the mayor, determine your COLA benefits. And right now in Boston, the COLA base is $15,000. Boston retirees, along with the support of our association and many others, have been working with Mayor Wu and the city government to increase that base. But that's strictly a local decision by the city of Boston as a municipal retirement system. But if you are a retired teacher from Cambridge or Brookline or Plymouth or Pittsfield or Springfield, all other retired public educators in Massachusetts are members of the MTRS. And your benefits are from the employer side are funded by the state government. Cities and towns do not pay 1 red cent into the teachers' retirement system, and that's something I don't think very many people are aware of. And that's been the structure now, again, for generations. But the decision of COLAs and so forth, just like the state retirement system, are made by the state legislature and the governor, not the teachers' retirement system. The 7-member MTRS board, just like the state retirement board, does not play any formal role in the annual COLA. And just like state retirees, retired teachers under the MTRS system have a $13,000 COLA base. And both the MTRS COLA base and the state COLA base are tied together. That's why quite frequently you'll read or hear us refer to as state and teacher retirees. It's because those COLA benefits, regardless of which of those 2 systems you might belong to, are going to be identical in terms of the base and how things are applied in the annual approval process, which again is done through the state budget by the legislature and the governor, ultimately having a approval authority over that. So that's where things get a little bit confusing, and we'll quite frequently will hear from retired teachers from smaller towns or the city governments outside of Boston who don't understand or are questioning why your local community may have a COLA base at one level for retired municipal workers like police and firefighters and other government workers at the local level, but teachers are treated differently. And that's because you are a member of a different retirement system, and that local city or town or school district that you retired from are not the ones paying for your pension. Your pension is being paid for by state taxpayers out of the state budget. And the appropriation right now for the state and teachers' retirement systems for the current fiscal year, which is FY26, is $4.9 billion. That's the amount of money that the state government has paid to fund their portion of state and teacher pension costs for the current fiscal year. Now, beyond the state retirement system and the teachers' retirement system, that leaves 102 local, municipal, or district systems. The majority of those systems are either city systems. Every city in Massachusetts, starting with the city of Boston, has its own retirement system. And most of the larger towns, so figure Framingham, Belmont, Plymouth, Falmouth, have their own local town retirement system. And it's the decision of those local authorities, again, in some cases going back more than 100 years ago, that opted to have its own local retirement system. And it really depends on the size of the community for the most part. But there is no strict rule of a community of X size would have its own system. It's strictly a local decision. But for the most part, the smaller communities have banded together, smaller towns have come together through either county or regional retirement systems that are geographically organized. So if you worked for a town, say in Plymouth County, a smaller town, say Duxbury, Hanover, Plimpton, Pembroke, Carver, they are all members of the Plymouth County retirement system that is chaired by Plymouth County Treasurer Tom O'Brien. Those smaller towns come together and pool their resources, pay into the county system, and that's where, if you are a retiree from one of those towns, your COLA base is determined by that retirement system. And that's the way it works across all 102 local retirement systems. The COLA base is set through a combination of a vote of the 5-member local retirement board with the approval of the local legislative body. So in a city, it's the city council and the mayor. In a town, it could be the city council, board of, in a town, it would be the board of selectmen or the town meeting in combination, depending on the bylaws of the community. In the city, it's city council, board of aldermen. It's a combination of those things that are, or those entities, those local legislative entities making those decisions, unlike at the state level, where it's a decision of the state legislature and the governor. So that's where things get a little bit different. Now, if you are a retiree from one of the authorities, so Massport, MWRA, Mass Housing Agency, by statute, the semi-quasi-public-private entities have their own public retirement systems by default. That's the way it has existed since their founding many decades ago. The COLA decisions, just like at the municipal level, COLA decisions across the authorities are made through a combination of the retirement board with the approval of the agency governing body. So the board of directors at Massport, for instance, would have say over increasing the COLA base. So again, where you happen to be a member of, the retirement system that you're a member of is strictly dictated by the job you held, wherever you happen to have worked, and where you retired from. That's the key thing. And for many public employees, over the course of your career, you may have moved from one community to the other, or even from a local community to the state, or from the state back to a municipal government. But at the end of the day, there's portability amongst all 104 public retirement systems in Massachusetts. And the determining factor of which system you ultimately belong to as a retiree is determined by where you finally retired from. You may have worked for 6 different entities, but ultimately you retired from one final place, wherever your last job was, essentially. So I hope this provides a little bit of clarity in terms of the retirement system and how the COLA benefits work and why they differ from community to community. Because while there are similarities, there are differences in terms of how aggressively a community wants to fund their retirement system, how early they began funding their retirement system. And it's really a local decision in many cases of how robust they may or may not want their benefits to be. But if you're still questioning or confused over which system you belong to, there are a couple of other ways you can find out. One is looking at where your pension check comes from, whether it be direct deposit or whether you get a paper check. Simply look and see where the source is. If it's coming from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for instance, then most likely you're a state retiree or a retired teacher. So you're a member of one of those two systems. If it says City of Boston on it, then you're a Boston retiree. Same with City of Cambridge or Town of Plymouth or Town of Falmouth or City of Springfield. The payer is going to be listed on that deposit. So that's one way. The other way would be to look on your 1099 form at the end of the year when you file your taxes. You're going to receive that tax document from your retirement system. The name of the retirement system will be clearly spelled out on your tax document. So that's another way for you to confirm which retirement system you're a member of. Now again, next week we're going to provide hopefully some clarity over how our health insurance benefits are structured and why you may be receiving one set of benefits and a friend of yours who retired from somewhere else is receiving a different set and what determines all of that. And believe it or not, it's even more complicated than our 104 public retirement systems, but we're going to give it a shot, explain this information to all of you. But once again, if you happen to be in and around the South Coast and you feel free, come on by, say hello at White's of Westport. Again, we're hoping for a great crowd. If you're watching this video online, if I can ask you for two things. First, if you are not a member of Mass Retirees, please join with us. We exist for the sole benefit of retired Massachusetts public employees. The strength of our association comes from our membership. If we do not have a robust, actively involved, and well-informed membership, then your benefits are at risk. It's as simple as that. We also have an associate member program for those of you who are active employees who are nearing retirement age and would like to receive our newsletter and would like to receive our weekly email update to keep you well informed and help you to better plan and prepare for your future retirement. And then one last thing, whether you're a member or a non-member, if you can give us a like, if you can follow us on Facebook or follow us on YouTube, it would be greatly appreciated. That way you also get updates every time we post new content. You're going to be amongst the first to know. So with that, I'm going to log off for this week. I will be back to you again next week with a fresh update that will focus on your health insurance. In the meantime, be well, everybody. Thank you so much.